Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Testing Peers podcast. My name is Chris Armstrong, and I am joined today by semi-regular Vernon Richard. See what I did there?
Hello, greetings.
Heather Carter,
Good evening.
Richard Hinton,
Hello, good to be here.
and of course, you, listener, you're welcome to join in. Today, we're going to be talking about what's next. We'll dive into that shortly. We have a sponsor message from our sponsors, Enfocus. Enfocus are a UK-based software testing company. They've been supporting businesses for 24 years by providing services that include burst resource, accelerated test automation, performance testing, and fully managed testing services. Now, in 2021, they launched a Test Automation Academy to create amazing testers, and they've now created jobs for 48 people in our industry in just under 3 years, which I think deserves a round of applause because we need more access points, more people to be able to start their careers in testing. So thank you very much, Enfocus. Now, you can find out more about Enfocus at enfocus.co.uk and email info@enfocus.co.uk with all the information available in the show notes. We're going to, as ever, do a bit of banter, and Heather's going to start us off.
Good evening, everybody. For our banter tonight, we are going to do two truths and a lie. And to kick us off, Vernon.
I have met Stephen Gerrard, I have met the Queen, and I have met Lewis Hamilton.
Ooh, good one. The
Oh,
question
no,
is
Mitch.
who's. I think from tone of voice only, Lewis Hamilton is the lie.
I'm going to go with the
Any-
Queen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going the Queen.
I'm afraid Richard is correct and the rest of you are wrong.
Wow. That's something
Impressive.
I didn't know about you.
I met HRH Elizabeth when I was 10 for her 60th birthday. I say I met her, I was basically squished up against a gate with like thousands of other people, and the whole family just came along and just shook everybody's hands or waved or something along those lines. So I just claimed that I met the Queen because I was separated by a gate at Buckingham Palace. And I met Stephen Gerrard when I was coming back from New York, and I imagine he was coming, and I was flying through Manchester, and I imagine he was coming back from LA Galaxy at the time. And I'm an absolutely ridiculous Liverpool fan, so I spotted him out of the corner of my eye. I was like, Stephen Gerrard, and I walked up to him and I went, I don't want anything, I just want to shake your hand and say you're awesome. So that's what I did. And I haven't met Hamilton, but I have met Romain Grosjean when I worked at a Formula One team, Renault back in the day. Not quite Lewis. Okay, I'm gonna pick on Richard next.
Okay, so I've been to a Michael Jackson concert, I've been to a Glee concert, and I've been to a Spice Girls concert.
Oh, that's good. That
I'm jealous unless we're talking certain generations of Glee, because the later Glee went down, the less good it was.
Just keep believing.
Oh, I'm going to say Glee, though, as the lie for you.
Okay, so come on, Vernon, what do you think?
I think Glee as well is the lie.
Okay, come on, Heather, what do you think?
I think Michael Jackson's the lie.
Okay, none of you were right. Spice Girls
Ooh.
was the lie.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Opportunity missed.
I know, I know. It's just never had the chance and too expensive. Michael Jackson was something that was years gone by. My mom was a big Michael Jackson fan and wanted to go to the King of Pop tour. And I must admit, big fan at the time as well. So it was really nice to kind of first concert I think I ever went to as well when I was about
What?
kind of what 16, 17.
Bloody hell.
So it's been a long time ago, down in Wembley. And then Glee was me taking my niece, being what can only be described as the epic uncle. She screamed a lot in my ear. I was slightly deaf by the end of it. But it was also one of my guilty secrets. I did like Glee too. So I was singing along to quite a few of the songs. Like you say, earlier stuff was good. Went downhill by the end. And so, yeah, never got to see the Spice Girls, which probably would have been the biggest fanboy thing if I actually did get to go and see them. So,
So who are you going to pick on now?
Chris, come on, I want to see yours.
You want to see mine? Oh, well. I have been to go and watch pro wrestling live at Twickenham. I've been to go and watch pro wrestling live at Wembley Stadium. And I've been to go and see pro wrestling live at the Millennium Stadium.
I know for a fact one of those is true, so I've got a 50-50 chance at this point.
Can I go first and guess Twickenham?
I'm gonna go Wembley.
I'm going Twickenham.
I've seen 2 pro wrestling shows at Wembley.
Oh,
I've seen 1 pro wrestling show at the Millennium Stadium and no pro wrestling shows at
Yay.
Twickenham. But I didn't. I mean, I could have also said the Coventry Sky Dome I've seen pro wrestling in, but probably a bit less exciting for people.
I think that would have been a better head fake.
All right, Heather.
okay. I've got a bit of a mixed bag. I tried to go with people and then artists, but I've kind of given a mixed bag. I have met Davina McCall. I have built my own kitchen, and I was born in Scotland.
Don't you feel like there's going like a real curve
You lot are really good at this.
because you clearly sound quite Scottish, but there's every chance you might not have been born in Scotland.
Right? Oh, you lot are good at this, man.
I've met Fiona Verhaak, and I know that you don't have to be from Scotland to sound Scottish.
Yeah.
I'll go with Davina McCall.
I really want to say this is Scottish, but I feel like you're trying to fake me out.
It's such a curveball.
It's oh man, I'm going Scottish. I think you're born in Scotland is the lie.
Yeah. I have to agree with Vernon on that one. That was my gut feeling.
What is it then, Heather?
I was not born in Scotland.
Oh,
Well done.
So if we tot it up, am I the only one that scored nothing?
I didn't get
Yes.
anything.
You and me, Heather. We're
Yep.
in the special loser tree. We're all warmed up. Thank you very much. So, as we look on to the next phase of the podcast, what's next? Look, we're all at different stages of our career, but we've all been doing this a little while. And we look into the future, we consider moving, hustling, changing, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. But maybe we want to talk a little bit about what's next, what we should consider, what sort of opportunities we see there might be in the industry and beyond. Has anyone got anything they want to start us off with?
one thing that's front of mind is personal brand. I think these days, just the economy is quite cyclical. We're in a part of the economy now where it's like redundancy central. And so there's a lot of us who are looking for work. And I feel like with each passing year, it becomes more and more useful for you to have a personal brand, which might sound a bit cringy. But I heard someone, and I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard someone refer to it as your professional reputation. And I think that is possibly a more palatable way to think about it. So I think we have to be more deliberate about how we curate our professional reputation. I feel like it's almost mandatory to have some kind of paper trail online. But you might just use LinkedIn, you might use X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. I feel like you got to have something because you want a way to present yourself in the best light possible in order to get the opportunities that you want to get. So that's what I think. I hope that's not too spicy a take.
You're referring to episode 23 of the Testing Peers podcast, I assume, where we talked about personal brand and reputation, or personal reputation and brand. But I hear you, and in this day and age, you've got to stand out and make moves and be able to point to the things that you have done. And I think being that sort of professional that might be attractive to people so that you're not always the one having to do what is painfully called job hunting, but to actually sort of search for whatever those next opportunities might be. Definitely, I think having some sort of a brand is important. How the hell do you choose? How the hell do you target? What's interesting to you? What's interesting in the industry and what's relevant today?
It's a tricky one. It's obviously to be your personal brand, be true to yourself and what you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it, other people will be too, and it will come across that way. You see people like Callum Akehurst, Ryan, who does accessibility and quite a few other things, and his brand's very clear. And there's quite a few others I've seen on LinkedIn, and you can very clearly see what they really are strong about, and what they feel strong about, and what their passions are. And I think, again, you don't have to be a generalist and be like, okay, I'm great at everything. Come on, hire me. If you're being passionate from a brand point of view, you can narrow it down to a couple of things because companies want that as well. Also, interestingly, one of the people at Test Bash this year were talking just about that. It was Rahul Parval. I think I've got the name correct. They did a talk. It was productizing yourself and building a portfolio as a tester. one of the biggest takeaways I got from that was about basically showcasing your work, but also creating a personal brand around yourself. Yeah, so that was a really inspiring talk.
I think it's definitely a struggle. For me, myself, I've never thought about doing a personal brand. It's maybe not somewhere that I feel that I would put myself out there like that. For me, it's definitely a struggle. What I always say to people when they ask me about testing or they ask me about how I'm passionate about it, I always say I live and breathe testing, which is a very strong statement to say, and I appreciate that. But when people hang around with me or spend a bit of time with me, they start seeing how true that statement is. So it's not necessarily something that I would go around shouting about. I certainly talk about it when I'm asked. However, recently, as we're discussing what's next, one of the things that I've been looking at is putting together my own company. And that's definitely been fun, about what branding is my company going to do? What's the values that I want my company to have? So I can't necessarily speak on a personal level, but I can speak on a business level.
Is your target for a business and its values to differentiate yourself or to do something you think there's a general movement towards a particular area? Like what's your sort of thing? What was the journey to even uncover your values as a company?
A lot of writing it down and what do I want to do? How do I want to progress? What do I value out of my own skills and qualities? Thinking about those out loud. One of the things that's big to me is quality. That's kind of why I'm a tester, why I went into testing, how I got here. To be straight up, I have started a business, and the three values that I've put together for this is quality, empathy, and transparency. And I very much, although they're values for my company, I very much feel that they're values for me as a person. Quality is always high. Yes, we might get things wrong. I am human, and so is everybody else. Empathy, doesn't matter who you are. I think we should always have empathy for everyone around us. I think it's something that some people lack. And transparency goes towards speaking up and telling customers exactly what you're going to do and also making that communication right. A lot of things is all solved by a bit of communication, whether that's email, telephone, face-to-face. Set it out exactly what's going to happen, step by step. 1, 2, 3, this is what we're going to do. If you can't get to 3, explain why, talk about it.
How easy or difficult was it to come up with the business values? Because it sounded like there's a relationship between your values and then the values of the business that you're creating.
It took a couple of nights, couple of evenings, wrote them down, put them together, thought about it, spoke to a couple of my old colleagues, said, do you think that this would look right? Do you think this would sound okay? And yeah, sort of thrashed it out, got a bit of feedback from those around me. I don't want to put a business together that I'm not passionate about and that I don't want to be a part of. And I have been in companies where you go and you look at their values and they're just words on the wall. They don't mean anything. They don't say anything. So I wanted to come up with just a couple that instilled my own personal values and the values that I can instill within a company. But yeah, it didn't take too long, more just writing it down. I didn't just want the word, I also wanted a small little statement. So it was also coming up with a small little statement of what quality means to the business.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Recently, I was talking to Fearler. So Ben Doan, who I know is a friend of this pod, had put a post and he was
Woo woo, Ben!
full snack tester. Absolutely follow Ben. He had like bigged up some people in a LinkedIn post. And then Fearler appeared and was saying, that's sick. All of these people seem to have a niche or something that they are known for. And I need to figure out how to do that. And so I replied to her comment and I can share what I said here. So the listeners, if they are wondering, well, how do I figure out what is my superpower or what is my niche? It might give them some ideas. So there were 3 things that I've learned that can help you figure this out. One of them is called the 2-year test. And essentially, if you reflect back and I'm just going to pick on you, Heather. Like 2 years ago, Heather was in a different situation to 2024 Heather. So what is it that 2 years ago Heather had to learn or had to overcome, or what opportunity did she have to create and take advantage of? And what advice would 2024 Heather give to 2022 Heather in order to do the thing? So that's one way. Think about all those adventures that you've had over the last 2 years and kind of distill them into a thing. And then this other one is fill in the blanks. And it's something like, I speak to Heather when I need to figure out blank. Or I speak to Heather when I've got a problem with blank. And so you think about all like when is it and what is it that people contact you for? There's something going on in someone's life, and the first person they think of is, I need to talk to Heather because she's the best person to help me with this thing. And like make a list of all those things. And then the last one, which might be my favorite one, is if someone said, Heather, you're going to be on stage in the next 2 minutes doing a TED talk. And I mean a TED talk, not like a TEDx talk, like a full-on TED talk. So that's 18 minutes of just ridiculous awesomeness that you have to present on stage. What are the topics that you could do that about? Where you just be like, I can talk about that for 20 minutes, non-stop, unprepared. I could just do it. And the key to all three of these things is not to second guess yourself and talk yourself out of the thing. So you might think of something that is, it could be something like, oh, I've just moved from Leicester to Brighton. I can talk about that for the next 25 minutes. It literally doesn't matter. Just make the list. And the good thing about each of those ideas is they spark off new ideas. So if you're stuck trying to figure out what your superpower is, or what your niche could be, or what your angle could be, or what is the topic that, what are the things that you could be known for and could form part of your personal brand, those kind of things can start getting the gears turning, I found.
That's really interesting, because that's essentially why I am here today.
Oh, hello.
Because I have recently left my job in testing. Before Test Bash, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I'm on this seesaw of, do I go back or do I stay in testing and go work for another company? Do I start my own company? But I live and breathe testing, so I want to be in the testing community. But that doesn't necessarily mean, before Test Bash, I had it in my head that in order to do testing, I had to have a testing job. And actually, speaking to Rich, speaking to yourself, speaking to Russell, speaking to Simon, speaking to Ben, and all those other wonderful people that we spoke to at Test Bash, I walked away realising I don't need to have a job working for a software company in testing to be a part of this testing community. I can do podcasts, I can do workshops, I can help out other people. Testing isn't just about testing software, you can also do it in many different angles and different ways. So it's really interesting that you put that take on it, because without me talking to Russell about the situation that I'm in, I wouldn't be here today doing this podcast with you wonderful people.
This community is an awesome place.
Yeah.
Shout out to Russell.
Oh, he'll be listening and editing this podcast just with a little tear in his eye. He's a beautiful, beautiful guy. Rich, you're also looking into these things at the moment, aren't you? How have you found the journey?
It is an interesting one because you're sort of on this precipice. Because I work in the consultancy world, have done for my last 2 career moves, just over 3 years now. And I went into it because I love the idea of being able to help organizations that struggle. And maybe it's like processes they've got trouble with. Sometimes it's the people and the politics, but there's always trouble in there. And I thought this is fantastic. You know, we can go in, we can make a change. And to be honest, sometimes that happens. Other times you're hired and there's the whole political thing where it's like, okay, now we've got our hands tied. We can't actually go and change the real problem that's there. We've just got to keep going and hope for the best. It's a tricky one. And I still love the idea of being able to help and change. And again, like the first morning of Test Bash, I was on the counter helping Heather, giving out swag. And we had a little bit of quiet time as it got towards the end. And, you know, we started to talk about this. And obviously she mentioned that she was in a very similar situation. It was quite therapeutic for me because I'm like, am I the only one here who's thinking that I'd love to go and do it myself? But that's really scary, especially as I couldn't just set a company up right now and have the funding. So maybe I need a contract, but there's no contracts. And I mean, literally no contracts out there at the moment. The ones that are so low that they wouldn't support you unless you had 2. And then if you had 2, you wouldn't have time to start your own business. It's been a tricky journey. You know, it's that to and fro. And every time I think I'm going down one route, something then comes along and goes, no, but you need the security of this. And if you go full time, then that's stop that because you can't go full time and also or set up your own business. It's very hard to do, especially as you're working in an industry that you would be potentially setting a business up in. So competition, clash of interest there. So for me, it really has been a tricky one. And I'm still on that fence. I think, Heather, I'm really proud of you. You were very toing and froing, and the fact that you've decided, credit to you. Honestly, I'm
Sure.
very proud that you've gone and you've done that. And I'd love to have a catch up afterwards and find out, a bit more about what you've chosen to do.
Absolutely, we could catch up. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed Test Bash this year, was because having those conversations with like-minded people, yourself, Vernon, Russell, everyone else that I spoke to, the 99-second talks as well. There was one point where people stood up and just said, if you want to do it, do it. I left, went and got my tea, sat down at the beach, done some journaling, and I just looked up at the moon and I just said to myself, now's the time. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
That is sick.
So yeah. So little plug. My company's called We Are Tether. It's about crafting digital experiences for your business, and the slogan is "We're the tether between your business and the digital world."
We'll find it in the show notes, friend.
Get in.
Whoop whoop.
Smokes. Woo woo.
That's beautiful. It's thinking about a brand. I too have been on the job market, friends. 2024 is the year of oh dear. I was trying to think about how do we stand out? How do we do these sorts of things? I ended up finding myself looking at quotes of things that I use often in the workplace. These are things that I find myself saying very often because I'm like, I point to these, I will say them, cliche and all. I don't care. Like, this matters. This is what you get with me. So rather than saying you're going to get these, I'm saying you're going to hear this. So I said, quality is everyone's responsibility, which
100% agree.
it triggers some people, but I truly believe it and will actively try to live it. It depends on the context. It's a very much my
Yeah.
first answer to most things. Everything has the opportunity for improvement. Even in the
Yes.
darkest days, things can get better. You can't change what's happened. You've got an opportunity to improve it. Knowledge is power when we share that knowledge. Quality can be well defined as the removal of unnecessary friction. Shout out to Stu Crocker, who I've been tagging about every fortnight on LinkedIn with that. Then I quote Ben Dowen, who's already been shouted out once on this. Feedback is a superpower. Use it wisely and use it positively. Bit of Vernon Richards in there, I think, as well. Assumptions are the termites of relationships. That's Henry Winkler, who played the Fonz in Happy Days.
Hey, say that one again.
Assumptions are the termites of relationships.
They
They eat away at the foundations and things will claw and fall apart.
Arthur Fonzarelli for the win.
He's down, exactly. Rich doing the thumbs. Software development is a social activity, which was Chris Nordstrom had that for the Eurostar 2023 conference theme, which was awesome. And then Ted Lasso's doing the right thing is never the wrong thing, even if people around you are saying that. Like, that's when that sort of strength of character, strength of integrity, and those sorts of things, even in the face of those mad things, if you know it's the right thing to do, it's not the wrong thing to do. That's kind of the way I try to shape those types of things. It's difficult, though, to know how those things are going to land with other people, and seeking feedback from friends, even when we have friends that we've empowered to, rip several holes in us. It lands differently with them than folks that maybe haven't heard of you, maybe don't know you, or folks in different industries. How can we go about sanity checking those things? Yes, we should use friends and colleagues and some beautiful recruiter people out in the world as well. But how can we validate that what we're doing, that thing that we think in our little lovely echo chambers, lands perfectly and sweetly? And by the way, everyone on this tonight has said lands so sweetly with me. But the industry is broad, the industry is wide. How can we sell ourselves, our brands, our values into an industry where they land in a way that it's going to be received and folks are going to start doing that not Simpsons, Futurama, take my money? Where's that going to happen? How does that sort of happen? How can we turn from salesmen? Vern's got a thing about like sales, haven't you, Vern? You talk about that. How can we turn a brand, something that we've curated and we know in our hearts is the right thing, into something that we can sell that people will buy?
It's that thing again, isn't it? How can we productize ourselves? And it is a tricky one. One of the things I like to do, and I think it's part of the tester approach and software developer over the years of myself, is I like to look at others and then I like to break down what it is that I see is working for them, successful for them. Kind of little mind map, idea board of, if there's someone I truly inspired by, I'll take a look and I'll start to think, well, okay, so what are they putting out there? How are they doing this? what are the key things that, for example, if I wanted to hire somebody because they were amazing in a field or came across as amazing in a field, because to be honest, a lot of the time we don't know how somebody would work. The image that they give, the sound bites that you put on LinkedIn still aren't you doing that job. I think that's the key thing is it's the sales pitch. It's looking at what makes them stand out or what makes you believe in them. And a lot of it is honesty. It is the honesty of that message. It's not, you can read a salesman from a mile off. I've worked with some people and I've been in a meeting and I've come out and I've said to others, I would not buy a used car off that guy. And instantly the team, you can tell the team is like, no, do not want to do what they want. I'm not keen on what they're saying or what message they're trying to put across. It's a hard one. And you'll have the occasional person that will come in and, whether it be delivery leads, project managers, whoever that person is above, and they'll tell you something and they'll bring you on a journey. And you're like, heck yeah, I don't care whether it's right or wrong. I'm following you to the ends of the earth. And so it's that honesty I find in the journey. It's a tricky one. I don't know if everyone agrees with that.
How do you make honesty
The best policy.
well? How do you make it actionable?
Talking about things, not being afraid to have those awkward conversations, not putting them off, having them up front.
It's a good one. I think it's also context depending on these things, but it's about the tone, it's about the understanding, the relevancy of the message, whether you're the right person to deliver that sort of stuff. All of those pieces, like self-awareness, right? You mentioned a bit of empathy, and there's also a bit of self-awareness that builds into that as well. Like, am I the right person to deliver this message? Am I the right person for you? Or am I selling something because I'm selling something? There are some folks, Rich, that you can't necessarily tell. Like they're really slick, smooth guys that can deliver a message that sometimes you don't quite know until you dig a bit deeper whether or not they really are. But I think you'd like to hope that the world is getting wise to a lot of fakes in this age of AI and all this other stuff, and hopefully there's better things to come. But getting it to land is tricky, and to do what you're comfortable doing as well.
Very true. I agree. Like you say, there are sadly those fakes that are just putting it out because they believe it's what wants to be heard. And you again, with branding, sometimes you get people who are just, looking at what's out there and then 2 weeks later just churning out the exact same stuff, but with their own spin on it, or they've taken someone's content and put in AI and said, can you summarize this in my voice?
Well, Vernon and I have received the exact same comment on our posts today on LinkedIn from someone, which clearly was very AI centered. Vernon may not have realized this, but I've read it.
You did.
Vernon did
I
not
think-
realize this, and now I would like to go and find out what it is.
Going on that's where I was maybe thinking, like, trust your gut. We all can kind of, what's a more polite word of saying this? We can all spot a bullshitter. We've all heard sales pitches. I'm sure we've all gone and been in places and people have given you, the sales pitch. I think there's that trust your gut. Do you think they're speaking the truth? Do you think they're being honest with you? If they're giving you bad news and they've got a smile on their face, well, that kind of gives it away, doesn't it? Whereas if they're coming to you with news and, that person that's giving you the news, you think, oh, they seem a bit on edge. How can I help them?
Mm.
That's where you can tell whether people are also being honest with you.
There's also that sort of sense checking, that accountability, that sort of use people that you trust, if you like, and check for those things. Like, I've got a hunch. This is what I think. What do you think? Don't just treat yourself as the only source of truth. Yeah, you've got a gut and you've got instincts and stuff, but maybe there's stuff you don't know. Maybe there's other stuff around the situation that you're unaware of. And doing those sorts of things, I think, is kind of innate in testers. We kind of dig a bit deeper rather than taking anything at face value. And I think that's a really good way to sort of approach these things.
I'm scrambling trying to. I listened to an audiobook some years ago. I think it was one by a dude called Patrick Bet-David. He used to do a lot of business content on YouTube, and now he does a lot of culture war stuff. So he's based in America. His book, Your Next 5 Moves, is pretty interesting. I can't find the quote, but he talked about these different ways that people talk about topics. And it was something that you said, Richard, that maybe spun me out trying to remember what it was he said. Because he was talking about people can talk about something, and I'm kind of doing it now, using somebody else's experience. I could talk about a topic and say, oh, what Richard Hinton learned about software testing, because he's an expert software tester and he's been doing it for this, and this years and da, da, da. You can talk about somebody else's experience, or you could, I think another level of it might have been, oh, you can talk about what it is that you've learned from a theoretical point of view, but you haven't done it. So you could kind of say, right, well, I've studied Heather and her testing escapades, and here's what I've learned good software testing looks like. It's this thing, that thing, and the other thing, and it's absolutely amazing. And, da, da, da. And then the other level is you're talking about your own first-hand experience doing the thing. What I remember thinking when I was listening to the book was it's not, in one sense, it kind of doesn't matter which level you're using at. I think what matters is, are you trying to pass off somebody else's experience as your own? I think that's the thing. Or are you trying, if you've been doing something for 2 minutes, are you trying to make out like you've been doing it for 2 decades? And I think that's the thing that gets people's back up. It's like, oh, you've only been doing it for 2 seconds. Like, why are you trying to now position yourself as this massive authority on a thing?
Oh yeah, I've been
So I'm
doing it
trying
2 weeks. Listen to me.
Yeah,
Doesn't go
yeah,
down very
exactly.
well, does it?
At all.
I get you.
I am the great and glorious Vernon, and you must listen to me because I've been doing this since yesterday. Oh, that's
See, this is one of the reasons that some of the people I follow on LinkedIn, I love what they do. Like you say, they bring you on a journey and they create discussions around it. Melissa Fisher, Fish Out the Box, is really good at this. She will talk about something and be like, hey, I've had a thought about this, or I've experienced this today, and here's some thoughts around it. And then it's always leads with a, come on then, let's see what you think. And I love that because it creates a conversation and a dialogue. It's not a preach. It's a, here's my observations. I'd love to know what yours are. It's the people who preach, and there are a certain couple of people who I've properly unfollowed because they were getting preachy. And funnily enough, I've heard others recently say exactly the same thing. So people are switching off to the, it's my way or the highway, or no, you're wrong in the comments and things like this. Because people aren't wrong. They just have a different experience or a different opinion.
I read I listened to another audiobook by a dude called Morgan Housel, and the last chapter in that book is absolutely fantastic. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. In that chapter, he's talking about, so the book is called Same as Ever. Morgan Housel is the author. And he talks about this phenomenon, or at least this is what I thought about it, this phenomenon of people getting the hump when somebody says something about a topic that they think is, I'm doing air quotes for the listeners that you can't see, is wrong. And what he says is the reason that that might happen is because if you've spent a lot of time and energy and effort studying a thing, and so you understand all the intricacies and the nuance, and then somebody shows up and says something that just doesn't even acknowledge on any level any of the nuance, and in a way, sort of from your point of view, who's the expert, right? You're thinking you have just misrepresented this entire topic. That is outrageous. How dare you? Right? And I think that resonated with me. I would recommend everyone to go and read that book, and don't skip to the end if you possibly can help it. But if you must, the last chapter is the one that I'm talking about. Same as Ever. It's absolutely fantastic.
Don't shortcut when the theme is about like having shortcuts and you want to be well read and understood things though.
Well, that, do we have to read books cover to cover? This book is pretty good. You can actually just read a chapter on its own and it'll be fine. So you could skip to the end and it'll be absolutely fantastic. When you position it like that, I kind of get it. I do the same thing. If people say, oh yeah, coaching is just this, I'm like, oh, no, it's not just that. God damn it.
It's about framing things though, right? Like coming back to like we're testers and we say things. We try to declare risks, assumptions, scope, things like that. And in storytelling, good storytelling, that sort of stuff is outlined. This is why I always encourage folks when I review abstracts for conference and stuff is to speak to your experiences, speak to your lived experiences. No one can tell you that what you've been through is wrong. Well, they can, but they'd be wrong. That's what brings these things to life, your lived experiences and stuff. And that can help other people learn about you, about your story, about the sort of lesson that you're trying to share with folks. And I think there's a lot of power in that. I think, and I guess the other thing is that the kind of the humbly presenting. This is what I've done. I know I'm not an expert in everything, but this is what I've experienced and this is what I've seen so far. Having that culture of wanting to continuously be learning and understanding and iterating and changing and not being stuck with these sort of pillars of great gospel truths that we shall never deviate from. I think it's a beautiful thing when you can get your brain around that, but we were sort of brought up with this is right and this is wrong, when in reality, that ain't the world. Now, we're right pressing towards the end of the time. Does anyone have like an exciting thing that they would like to say, or better yet, where we can find you online if you want to be found?
Dun, dun, dun.
Heather, go on.
You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Heather Carter, and I am the founder of We Are Tenor. If you want any websites or any information regarding my business, we have also got a LinkedIn profile. So please visit us there. Thank you.
Awesome. Rich.
Hey, so yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Richard Hinton. Hopefully people will find me on there. It's always a tricky one when there's other famous people with that name. I'm hoping to have a website set up by then. I suppose this could be my call to action to definitely make sure it's set up by then. And yeah, it is softwareshakeup.com.
Nice. Vernon Richards. Where can we find you? Where can't we find you?
You can find me moonlighting on this podcast, probably a bit too often. But so I've got a website, vernonrichards.com. There's stuff on there. I also host a podcast called The Vernon Richard Show, which you can find at thevernonrichardshow.com. I blog at typeshare.co/Vernon Richards, and I'm on LinkedIn. You can just find me, Vernon Richards. I'm on Twitter, not so much these days, but Tester from Leicester on all the social medias. I think that's it. And the podcast is on YouTube too. Please go to the channel.
It is. It is. Like, subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff.
All of that stuff. Trying to get to 300 subscribers, y'all. Help us out.
Long way from monetization, but you'll get there, my friend.
Exactly.
This has been really fun. I've loved having some new voices, new people to talk to. I've loved the topic. Thanks, Heather, for the proposal for that sort of stuff. It's been really wonderful. Folks, we love having you here. Testing Peers, many podcast episodes here. We've got new voices. Lovely, lovely stuff. We love your feedback. Please throw it our way on our LinkedIn or contact us at testingpeers.com. We have PeersCon 2 taking place March 13th, 2025 in Nottingham. Tickets early bird available till end of November at £15 only, rising to the shockingly high price of £25 thereafter. Please get involved. Call for papers will have closed by the time you hear, but we'll be open for volunteers and for folks to come along. Please tell your friends, tell your companies to come and sponsor us. We'd love to see you there. We'd love you to participate. We love your feedback. We love you, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.